Even in the 1800s, we like to stay in shape. Back straightener? I'm not sure what he's doing. It's important to stretch. Gotta strengthen the soles of the feet, I guess. Even side saddle practice. This is the Garden City Gazette, April 20th, 1895. Social observations. Mrs. J.M. Gose is down with pneumonia. W.D. Tyler and Major E.C. Kilbourne visited Dayton on Friday. Mrs. Margaret Preston of Waitsburg has been visiting in the city this week. The Whitman Seniors. The class of '95 of Whitman College held their class evening at the residence of Mr. H. H. Hungate on the evening of April 12th. The guests were the faculty, college, and senior preparatory students, and a few others. The members of the class are Miss Rosine Edwards, Miss Lulu Hungate, Mr. George McGuire, Mr. Ernest Woodcock, and Mr. Harry Painter. They entertained their friends in the most delightful manner, with games, conversation, a dainty repast, and a short program by the members of the class. As the parting time for the class draws near, the warmest well wishes of host and friends go with them for all future happiness and success. Accident by wheel. Fred Van Horn seriously injured on the Dry Creek Hill near Milton. Mr. John Kirkman heard from Fred Van Horn this morning, and the young man's condition is reported as hopeful. The first serious accident to occur to a wheelman in the Walla Walla Valley befell Fred Van Horn on the Dry Creek Hill near Milton last Sunday. Mr. Van Horn was making the trip from Pendleton to Walla Walla to visit his mother who lives here. When partway down the Dry Creek Hill, a long grade of about 2 miles long, he lost his pedals. His machine became uncontrollable. While dashing down the long incline as he was rounding a curve, he was thrown into a wire fence with sufficient force to break the posts for some distance. When found sometime after by wheelmen who were passing the scene of the accident, Mr. Van Horn was unconscious and bleeding. The family from Walla Walla and from Pendleton are attending him in the town of Milton. In self-defense, one of Uncle Sam's boys takes up the mighty pen. Fort Walla Walla, April 17, 1896. Editor Gazette. I wish to call to your attention an article published in your paper of the 13th, referring to the conduct of two soldiers in the outskirts of the city of Walla Walla on the afternoon of Sunday preceding. Although the article does not refer to me, it has placed myself and others in a somewhat humiliating position for this reason. A friend and myself, in company with ladies, who are cousins, took a walk in the direction of the cemetery on the same afternoon as referred to in your article. While I know no act of impropriety was committed by our party, we met several acquaintances who, after reading the article, the description of the parties conforming so closely to ours, knew of no one to shower their suspicions on but us. In this way, it has been circulated throughout the city that we were the ones referred to. Therefore, we wish, if you would be so kind, that you would publish a more explicit description of those referred to, as it will help to relieve our acquaintances of their false impression and rested on those whom it was intended for. We were dressed in civilian clothes, so we know that no one would recognize us as soldiers by our dress unless personally acquainted with us. Besides, I am positive our conduct would have not caused comment on any public street. Hoping your next publication will contain an article acquitting us of the false accusations from your readers, I remain, yours truly, Oscar B. Moore, Troop H, 4th U.S. Cavalry. Editorial Comment. The Gazette reporter who wrote the paragraph, Fallen from Grace, assures the editor that he did not know the two gentlemen mentioned except that they were uniformed, and hence the term soldiers. He is not acquainted with Mr. Moore, the writer of the above letter. Consequently, if he was walking with ladies in the direction mentioned, he was not observed or spoken of by the reporter. It is not the purpose or policy of the Gazette to pick up and publish matters of scandal, which by their nature are not good for the public. But the incident which was narrated a week ago was regarded of public importance because the persons implicated were unduly hilarious on the public highway and were consequently offensive to a number of travelers in that neighborhood. Many ladies and gentlemen were in that locality on Sunday, and because 4 of these conducted themselves unbecomingly, it is unfair to accuse all of doing so. The description of the 2 men who were intoxicated should have been more definite than just simply to say they were soldiers. The Gazette does not wish to create the impression that soldiers as a class are not good company for young ladies, for we realize that a good portion of our best citizens came to Walla Walla in the enlisted ranks. There are no more rakes in the regular army than will be found in the other walks of life, and not so many as will be found among attendants of fashionable clubs in the cities. Furniture, new, firm, new goods, temporary store, Kirkman Block, East Main Street. Furniture, crockery, glassware, hardware, etc. See our celebrated baby carriages, the best in the city. New and second-hand furniture bought, sold, and exchanged. On May 1st, will open in the Davis Kaiser's old store, Griffith & Co. Our native birds. Editor Gazette. In speaking further of our native birds, I shall first introduce the magpie. This is the American magpie, or black-billed species. The magpie can learn to talk and makes a very interesting but mischievous pet. The bluebird. The bluebird, of which we have 2 species, is a well-known bird throughout the United States. The naturalist Olive Dabell, in speaking of this bird, says, "The bluebird is cherished in the hearts of all who know him, and is hailed by the young and old as he comes to us from the first sunny days of the new year, with his plaintive, hisping notes which foretell of the spring, with its verdant fields and balmy air. Prose writers have vied with each other in depicting the gentleness of his manners, and poets have turned their harps of varied things to tell the secrets of his charm. The blackbird. We have several species of blackbirds, the most common of which is known as the brewer's blackbird or the blue-headed grackle. The owl. We have many species of owls, but I shall not attempt to describe or classify them at present. There is one species, however, which is so common and so often seen during the daytime that it deserves mention. I refer to the little burrowing owl. This is of a yellowish-brown color and lived, during the summer season at least, in the deserted burrows of quadrupeds, such as squirrels and badgers and the like. Many stories have been told of this bird living in the same hole with rattlesnakes and prairie dogs, but ornithologists differ from these statements. This owl may be seen at all hours of the day, standing at the entrance to his burrow or on a fence post nearby, usually upon one foot, and making the most graceful bows to passer-by. The burrowing owl disappears early in the fall, and I suppose he seeks a winter burrow in a warmer clime. And lastly, the white-rumped shrike, sometimes called the butcher bird, is frequently seen here. He is about the size of a robin, has a short stout beak, slightly curved and strong talons. The color is a light drab or gray with darker wings and tail. The shrike is a fierce little bird and preys upon insects, small birds, and quadrupeds. Ramblings. Colonel William Hunter, whom many old-timers remember well as a frequenter of these parts, has written a very interesting book on his experiences on the frontier. Although I have grown up from boyhood in this country, I had never read Colonel Hunter's reminiscences until today. Colonel Hunter states, "When not yet well up in my teens, I induced my friend Frank to accompany me on an expedition through the Blue Mountains. We traveled on ponies and had one pack horse. We had been out long enough to lose one of the riding horses when we struck the Wallowa Canyon, through which the stage line from Joseph to the Oregon Short Line passes. We had been taking turns about walking and riding until we were both sore-footed. We heard the stagecoach rattling up the canyon. I proposed to Frank that if he would get on the stage and ride up to the head of the valley, I would follow rapidly with the horses to the advantage of both of us. So we stopped by the side of the road to hail the driver and make arrangements as to fare. When the vehicle came into view and the stage man saw us, he applied the lash to his 6 horses and went by us like a whirlwind. We yelled at him to stop, but this only increased his belaboring of his horses. As far as we could hear the clatter of hoofs and the rattle of the equipage, we knew that the driver and his horses were on a dead run. When we arrived at Enterprise Station a couple of days later, we heard at a livery stable about an effect having made to rob the incoming stage. It was also said that on this trip the stage had carried $5,000 in gold for an Elgin bank, and the driver had been instructed to carry no passengers. It has always afforded me a humorous reflection to think of the time when, in broad daylight and as a boy in his teens, I looked so formidable as to be mistaken for a stage robber. And it adds to the incongruity of the situation when I think that my companion, Frank, was then limping from sore feet, having worn out his shoes, and pale and weak from a sickness caused by a strictly meat diet, that the stage driver, probably to this day, recounts to his friends how he saved himself and $5,000 from 2 daring highwaymen. The opportunity for dress reform. The safety bicycle promised to do more for the cause of dress reform than all the orators and writers. When a woman is mounted on a wheel, the ordinary skirts become troublesome, dangerous, and hideous to the eye. There is something particularly ungraceful in the motion of a woman's limbs underneath a skirt of ordinary length as she follows the upward and downward circling of petals. Nor is it possible for her to obtain the exhilarating swing of movement and enjoy the health-giving exercise. There are many devices that take the place of ordinary parlor or street dress. There are the bloomer, the divided skirt, and the short breeches with long leggings, which are perhaps the best of all for perfect freedom of movement and graceful appearance in action. And while it is a happy change which leads the wives and daughters of the land to betake themselves to exercise that gives them health and blood, it is not inconsiderable gain that an incidental consequence of this should be the necessary advancement of the cause of a rational dress reform.